It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
It is time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That means that is Alan Saunders. Before we dive into anything, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave us a 5-star review if you're listening somewhere that isn't YouTube. Alan, what's going on?
It's a new day. Steelers practice today. Are we feeling differently about the win a day later, the win over the Cleveland Browns? Having watched some tape, having digested it, having slept on it for like a full or relatively full night's sleep, how are we feeling? I know you got a little thing going on. You're not feeling great in general.
Yeah, I'm not feeling great in general. No. I don't know that I do feel all that different. I don't know that I felt that bad about it to begin with, though. Speaking on behalf of like the general fans, I think you come away from that game like happy with the win, but almost feeling like kind of like, I don't want to say opening week of last season because of like the TJ injury ish, where it was like, yeah, they won the game, but it was ugly and you're not feeling great about the future anyway. But just because of like the offensive performance still leaving a lot to be desired, I think that's kind of what I meant in terms of like them not feeling great, even though they got a win. But for me, like, I just take it week by week. They came out of their 1-0 this week. So that was great. Move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think rewatching it, there were some more positives than maybe I thought there were live from the defense. You know, I didn't think the defense played that well for most of the game. They just kind of hung on and then had those two bookended big splash plays. But when I went back and really looked at it, you know, I think I kind of underestimated how much they did pressure Deshaun Watson, even in like not great down and distance situations. The one area where there's really obviously room to grow was inside runs. I think they gave up too many yards on inside carries, but you know, that is probably the strength of the Cleveland offense in that they don't run heavy packages. There's no fullback. There were some extra offensive linemen, but not a ton. Like, they're not like trapping and running power. You know, it's still zone blocking. But they run really well between the tackles because they have two great guards in Joel Bitonio and Wyatt. And I thought the Steelers, without Cam Heyward, got beat in the middle of the interior line. I thought Keeanu Benton was good. I thought Montravius Adams was good. I thought Larry Ogunjobi was good in spurts. But on the whole, too much running up the middle. But I don't think going forward that's going to be that big of a problem. There aren't that many teams with a Nick Chubb, a Joel Bitonio, and a Wyatt Teller that have that personality. Like, this week's game is such a completely different challenge because the Raiders will use a fullback. You know, they are more of a man-blocking team. They're not going to spread you out and then run up the middle like the Browns do. And so I think, like, the stat line is ugly, right? You don't want to give up 400 yards. You don't want to give up 198 rushing yards, right? But I think compared to, say, the offense, I think the defense's problems feel more contained to that matchup and that opponent as opposed to, like, things I'm worried about for the rest of the season. Does that track with you?
Yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense. Something I wanted to ask you about from 1 week to the next was actually like something I wanted to bring up in terms of where I saw improvement on the defense, despite them getting dashed on the ground and giving up chunk plays. Obviously, like you mentioned, the big plays really coming as the splash plays, which saved the day, was the communication aspect of things. I think it was fair to expect them in week 1 to have, with as much turnover as we've seen on that side of the football, to have some growing pains on that side of the football. From week 1 to week 2, did you feel like that improved? And is it fair to think that that's just going to improve week to week to week?
I think a couple things improved. I think their communication improved, and I think Terrell Austin did a better job of getting those new pieces into the places where they're most successful. Like, that's a big part of this. You know, when the Steelers decided, okay, we're going to have 3 starting safeties, we're going to have 3 starting inside linebackers, and we're going to have, you know, a couple of guys that could be options to play the slot and 3 different nickel packages and 2 different dimes. a big part of having all that is the responsibility of Terrell Austin to get them in the right look all the time. You know, if it's like having if you have a fantasy football team where you just have like your 7 best players are your 7 best players, and the line never changes unless you're hurt, unless somebody's hurt or somebody has a bye week. That's a managerial skill, right? Like it doesn't matter how good you are as a fantasy football manager. But if you have guys that are very equivalent talents all over the place, and you're having to pick, do I want this guy or that guy? Do I like this matchup or that matchup better? Like that's where coaching really comes into it. And I think Terrell Austin did a better job in week 2 than week 1. I think the players communicating and fulfilling their assignments did a better job of that in week 2 than week 1. And I think, to quote Mike Tomlin here, I think it's reasonable to expect that they'll continue to get better at that. I don't think we've seen anywhere near the ceiling of how smoothly and how efficiently this defense can operate.
I didn't think things were perfect once Minkah Fitzpatrick went out of the game, but that was kind of where I was talking about too. I put out a tweet yesterday talking about Terrell Austin because of, not having Minkah Fitzpatrick at his disposal for the amount of snaps that they did in that football game, and seeing an increased role for Keeanu, Leal, and DeMonte KZ on the back end. How did you feel like things went at that point once Minkah Fitzpatrick was no longer an option for them?
It took a lot of that away from Austin, right? All the 3 safety looks. I mean, they did still use Elijah Riley as the 3rd safety in the dime. But I think it took a lot of that away. I think that will take a lot away going forward. It makes their defense much more predictable without him in there. That first interception, happens because of Minkah Fitzpatrick. You can't even get Alex Highsmith in a position to make that play with a different person as that defensive back. And so it takes away a lot of that if he can't play. His injury obviously will be one to monitor, but I think it's pretty telling. We got some transactions today, and
Yes.
we can run them down here real quick. So the Steelers signed a running back from the Falcons practice squad, Godwin Igwebuike. If you remember the Lions game in 2021, he's the guy with the 40-yard touchdown to put Detroit ahead in the second half. Former college safety turned pro running back. Interesting dude. I'm not sure exactly how he fits into this offense. I'd like to get a better read on him after a couple practices, but he's signed to the active roster from the Falcons practice squad. Then Braden Fehoko was promoted from the practice squad to the active roster. And Deuce Watts.
That was coming for the Cleveland game, but
yeah, that's why I really think they might. But again, like I said, like Cleveland is a little bit more spread out. I think this game is a much better matchup for a nose tackle than that one. Deuce Watts, wide receiver, rookie out of Tulane, had a bunch of long receptions, but didn't grade well in terms of speed. Kind of reminds me of like James Washington light version. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But, like guy who's not that big but just runs good deep routes. Not that big and not that fast, but just gets down there and gets the ball somehow. Averaged like 20 yards a catch last year at Tulane and had 8 touchdowns. I think you'd take that. So he joins the practice squad, 3 transactions, whatever. They didn't add any kind of safety. So I think that's pretty telling that we have these transactions today. Very clearly, adding Fehoko to the roster to replace Cam Heyward, adding a running back to replace Anthony McFarland, backfilling a practice squad player to help offset the potential absence of Gunnar Olszewski, who's in the concussion protocol. Didn't seem to feel the need to make a move at safety. Where, by the way, they're not that deep. They really only have Elijah Riley. Miles Killebrew doesn't even play safety, and I mean it's his nominal position, but he basically only plays special teams. And they don't even have like a true safety on the practice squad right now. Trenton Thompson, I guess they just have one, but not the deepest position in the world. So I feel pretty good about Minkah Fitzpatrick's long-term availability if they're not making a move to add a safety right now. And we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, I think, circling back to the defense, I think And the other thing is, like, okay, you asked yesterday, like, is their splash play production sustainable? And I said, well, probably not, but maybe, like, some of it is, and I think there's, to do that without Cam Heyward, you get the last one without Minka in there, like that. There's a lot of what they're doing right now is real. There's no question about that to me.
Yeah, I think, you can take sustainability and maybe make it a few different things. The turnover production, absolutely, like getting to the quarterback, that can be there, but you can't expect them to score 2 touchdowns every single week. And that's
Right.
kind of where,
Yeah.
People could maybe take the way I was asking that and go with that, but that's not what I meant. I meant the turnover production, the ability to get to Deshaun Watson 6 times and pressure him a lot more than even that. So that was kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I came away feeling a lot better about the defense. Not really about the offense. I think we're still in the bad place there, huh?
Yeah, and I think that's, it's just so hard because when things are as bad as they've been for the Steelers offense, and we're not just talking about this 2-game sample size, we're talking about, a couple seasons now where things just haven't been right on that side of the football. And so I get that there's just like an impatience from the fan base. I mean, I'm part of that. But people really seem to have a hard time figuring out where to like divvy the blame. Like who is to blame for this particular thing? Who's to blame for this particular thing? So when you watch back Monday night's performance, what did you come away as like the number one glaring issue within the offense?
I wish it was one thing. It would be very easy to point out.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
the overwhelming thing. Yeah.
There's so much, I didn't think Canada had that bad of a game when I was watching it live in terms of just like what to call when. Really going back and looking at it, though, I think there are some real sort of like tough problems that the Steelers offense has that I don't know that I see easy solutions for. Like, here's one of them. They're way too easy to predict run pass. Najee Harris alluded to this today.
Yeah.
Like, they're way too easy to predict run pass based on, I think Canada is a fairly like by the book play caller. And look, the book is the book for a reason. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but he's a fairly by the book play caller in terms of like down and distance puts him into this box. You know what I mean? Like he's pretty he's pretty basic there. Like he's not a guy you see like handoff up the middle on 3rd and 10 or he generally calls the plays that people are pretty much expecting for a situation. So that's one. 2 is I think the Steelers really need to decide whether they want to be an under center team or a shotgun team and pick one. Because when they go under center, they run at such a high percentage that it makes it so easy to key run pass just based on that one thing. And then Kenny is not that good under center either. So they kind of limit what they're doing, the play calls. Like most of the time when Pickett's under center and it's a play, it's like one of the bootlegs. It's some kind of half field read. Like it's all the stuff that people hate about this offense. Those are the under center passes. And like they had a lot of success in this game running. And Derek Bell wrote a great story, SteelersNow.com, for our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, I got a promo code for you. Alan10, ALAN10. If you haven't subscribed to SteelersNow.com, put that promo code in and get you 10% off of an annual subscription. It's $40. It's well worth it. Derek wrote today, big long film study about the success the Steelers had in shotgun play action. And that's like the big play of George Pickens was that, and there were others. I just think they aren't good enough at either to I'm not sure that there's like a right answer as to what it's not clear to me which one they should go, but
yeah,
the back and forth doesn't seem to be working very well. Like they did shotgun play action, but they never run out of the shotgun. And by the way, Najee Harris, not the world's best shotgun running back. So Like, I don't know. They have that's why these are hard problems to fix, right? You have a running back that would be best if you lined your quarterback up under center. You have a quarterback that would be best if you always lined him up in the shotgun. You have a quarterback who would be way better if you can use more play action, but he has to be in the shotgun to be good. But then you can't run out of the shotgun because your running back's not good there. Like, it just, none of it fits together. And so that to me is one of the problems with this offense. And that, like, so here's the thing I want to talk about today. We got a comment about Jaylen Warren versus Najee Harris. And I kind of want to get into this because, so go ahead and read the comment first, I guess, before we go any further, if you have it up.
Yeah, Marlon says Jaylen Warren definitely needs more touches. Looks way more explosive than Najee. Need to take advantage of his speed. I'll because it's a two-part thing, but the other part is about the defense. So I guess we can say
just leave this here. Thanks, Marlon. You said thanks.
Yeah,
it's a point I've heard from a lot of people, and I think it's a good one. I think Jaylen Warren looks more explosive and more decisive than Najee Harris, but Najee Harris is running at a higher yards per carry. Najee Harris is also running in all of these obvious run down situations that don't work. You know, if you look at Najee Harris's runs from this game, it's like 17, 0, 0, 0, 1, -1, 21, 0, 1, 2. Like, that's not sustainable for an offense that needs to stay on schedule. You can't say Najee's going to average 4.5 yards per carry, so we're going to give him the ball 10 times, but 7 of those 10 times we're going to be staring at 2nd and 8 or worse. Like, that's not sustainable for this offense. I think Jaylen Warren is a much better shotgun running back than Najee Harris is. So, like, I think you almost, it's like the Steelers are running 2 offenses and trying to fit them together, right? You have the, like, shotgun, run heavy, the under center, run heavy, the offense that wore down bad teams at the end of last year, right? That it was not explosive. It didn't score a lot of points, but it held on to the ball, got Najee Harris a lot of rushing yards, and won them football games. Like, that's one offense. And then I think you have the offense that the Steelers kind of want to have, where Kenny's slinging it and George is running around. And I think Jaylen Warren is much better suited to that offense. And I really think in the intermix between the two kind of things that they're trying to do, they're kind of getting the worst of both worlds. I don't know how to fix this problem. I'm only able to identify it. But I think that is the fundamental thing that is going wrong in terms of scheme design and play calling. That the Steelers' pieces aren't bad. I'm not saying Najee Harris is a bad running back, but he doesn't fit what the rest of the offense is best at. Kenny Pickett has not been a good quarterback. You could make an argument Kenny Pickett is a bad quarterback, but then you should probably be trying to do the things that take it easiest on your not very good quarterback. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but it seems like a conundrum, especially with Deontay Johnson out, because I think that makes them that much less explosive in the passing game and that much more reliant on the same kind of offense we saw down the stretch last year.
Yeah, and real quick, just for me to touch on the Najee Jaylen thing here, I like Jaylen more because of what he can do as a receiver out of the backfield and getting him in space, and whether it's a run play or those plays that you say are like an extension of the run game and just getting the ball into his hands in space. I don't know if people realize this. Currently tied for the team lead in receptions and second on the team in receiving yards is Jaylen Warren. So yeah, I like him more kind of in that role. I don't expect him to ever be a guy that you're going to hand the ball to 20 times between the tackles, runner, and say, go and fill that role. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think that in an ideal Steelers offense, if they find a way to get this working, they both have a role within it. But to your point, there's so many things right now that are wrong with his offense. I don't even know how we get to the point where you are utilizing both of them to the best of their ability.
Yeah, I think really the best case scenario is you just hope for incremental improvement. We did, I believe, see incremental improvement from week 1 to week 2. As long as that continues, I don't think you're going to see anything drastic. Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday, I don't see any knee-jerk reactions here. I think that's almost always the right idea. But there may be a time when that reaction is not knee-jerk, right? Or if you start out really badly and then you maybe start to get better and then you get worse again, I don't think that's a knee-jerk reaction. I think that's an appropriate reaction at that point.
Yeah, I would agree. I want to ask you about a player that we didn't necessarily. This is literally for me. This is for Zach Smith here. This is if you want, I can type in the YouTube comments real quick so I can say it's a YouTube comment. But I want to ask you about a player that I feel like, obviously, the offense as a whole has been disappointing. Not seeing Kenny translate from the second half of last year and what was in the preseason has been disappointing. I have been severely disappointed, maybe the most disappointed, with the performance of Isaac Seumalo on the offensive line. The offensive line as a whole hasn't been very good, but what say you to that?
Yeah, the player that I saw in the preseason was such a difference maker. I think that's the other reason that I've been a little bit underwhelmed by what Seumalo has done. Obviously, some quality defensive lines here early on. No question, the 49ers and the Browns are two of the better defensive lines in the league. But I've not been really impressed by the offensive line's play. I didn't think the offensive line gave Kenny very much time in this game, and they got a lot of help. Like that's a depth problem for an offense also when you're keeping 6 and 7 players in the block all the time, and your quarterback is still not able to sit still and make his reads. It really, really makes it hard on him. And I think that happened a lot in this game where the Steelers were keeping guys in and they were not getting clean pockets for Kenny, even though they were keeping help. Now, part of that is the guys they were keeping in. But Jalen Warren, who is a very good pass protector as running back, had kind of an iffy day in that regard. I know that Pat Freiermuth has been downright bad at every blocking assignment he's been given this year, including pass protection, and that has certainly not helped. But I don't think that that there's no doubt in my mind that the offensive line can be better, and it needs to be because they spent some money there. They invested a first-round pick. Obviously, I haven't seen Broderick Jones on the field yet, but that was obviously an area of attention for the team in the offseason, and I'm pretty sure they're not satisfied with where it's been.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a whole you got in your soapbox about PFF, and we could continue to have conversations, I feel like, about those ratings every single day. But obviously, the Steelers' offensive line has not graded out very well by their measurements in the first 2 weeks here. Even to the point where Myles Garrett, who, if you were watching Monday night's game, probably didn't notice him right away. Now, if you go back and watch tape, he was winning against Dan Moore and stuff. Didn't really impact the game, though, in many ways. He graded out better than the player that just won AFC Defensive Player of the Week in Alex Highsmith. How is this possible, Alan? What are we doing?
We're doing enough. I don't know. It's nonsense. I mean, we've kind of talked about this, but you can't. So there's like some theory here that makes sense, right? The theory is that it's the same theory as like Corsi in hockey, right? Okay. Corsi in hockey is like, hey, goals are good, but goals are hard to get. So what are the pieces that go into goals? Because we want more of those. Well, in hockey, the answer is shots. We want shots. Okay. Shots are most players, you take about 10 shots, you should average about a goal. Okay. So what is the pass rush analog here? Well, they've created the stat, and PFF isn't the only one to do this, called pass rush win rate. The problem with this is that football is not hockey, and there are no events. In hockey, you have an event. You have a shot that is recorded by the statistician, and it is an event. In pass rush, the only events are the end of the pass rush. Either there's a sack, there's a pass breakup, there's a penalty, there's a completion, an incompletion, or the quarterback runs. Like, that's it. Like we don't have enough events to make a statistical analysis like we can in hockey when it comes to Corsi. So they invented them. They've now said this pass rush win rate where they assign a win or a loss to every pass rush rep for the defensive player and for the offensive player. ESPN does theirs based on time and the little sprite ball things that the tracker data uses. And so, if the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman are still together after 2.5 seconds, they call it a win for the offense. I don't know what PFF uses because it's magic and sorcery, and they can't dare tell us their formula, or we'll all find out that their entire company is a fraud and a sham. So there's that. But the concept is just fatally flawed because it doesn't take into any account the job of the offensive lineman changing on a play-to-play basis. Like if I'm Pat Freiermuth and I'm on the backside of a run play, if you want to run like the wrong direction, well, I'll let you get as much separation from you as you want, but that doesn't mean that I did a bad job of blocking you. That means I did a good job of blocking you. If the play is a slant, I only need to block for 1 second. If the play is a Hail Mary, I might need to block for 5. 2.5 is this arbitrary figure that sits in the middle and does no justice to anyone. And so it's all an attempt to say, how many sacks should we expect a person to get? But, we have that number. It's the sacks. Like, there's no, to me, it doesn't add any value to me that, he won 62% of his pass. Like, the only thing, I will say this, there's one area where I think that you could add to what we have in the counting stats, is that if a player was going to get the quarterback, but his teammate got there first. Like, that's about the only thing I can say is like, okay, that was a win, and there was nothing else you could have done. Your teammate just got there first, and, you're getting dinged unfairly for that one. But otherwise, this, like, mythical pass rush win that doesn't result in pressure on the quarterback, doesn't result in a missed throw, a batted down pass, a penalty, a sack, a quarterback hit, what good does it do? It doesn't do anything to anyone, so I don't know why we're counting them. It's like,
it goes back to the word that I used earlier was sustainability. I think it's putting all the stock in the world in the process of the things, but not into the result of the actual play.
But it's like only one piece of the process, and even then, like, the process they're using to identify the process is so deeply flawed that what could you possibly learn from that number that you can't learn from watching the game and counting the sacks and the pressures and the quarterback hits and the holding penalties and the pass breakups? I don't know. Like, do you want me to say that Myles Garrett is good? Yeah, no crap, Myles Garrett is good. Like, you're not telling me anything that anybody that's ever watched him play doesn't already know. Was Myles Garrett impactful? That's a better word than good. Was Myles Garrett impactful on that game Monday night? Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. So what are you trying to measure? Are you trying to measure good? Well, of course Myles Garrett's good, but I don't need PFF to tell me that. If you're trying to measure impact, he was not impactful in that game.
Yeah. Alex Highsmith, AFC Defensive Player of the Week, was very impactful in this game. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Oh, outstanding. I think Alex Highsmith is one of the keys to the Steelers defense going forward. When you're looking at a defense that doesn't have Cam Heyward and it may not have Minkah Fitzpatrick, you need people to step up. And I think Alex Highsmith showed last year when TJ Watt wasn't in there that he is not quite ready to be like the dude for a whole defense. But as in terms of like a guy that can step up and make big plays on a game in and game out basis, he is absolutely that, man. He just finds the football. How about his coverage skills? I asked Mike Tomlin about that this week, and he kind of laughed, but like makes an interception, kind of right place, right time. But remember, he locked up Diggs in the preseason. Like he kind of looks like
he recorded his first career interception against Lamar in Baltimore before he got his first sack.
Yeah, right. Like he can kind of cover. I just think he's I think people see his contributions and they compare him to TJ and they say, well, TJ's on the field too, so it's hard to separate what he does, and that's true. And by the way, that's a whole nother part of that conversation before that we weren't even talking about, is like, how much attention are you getting as a blocker? Or it completely changes whether you're doing a good job or a bad job. If I'm a guard and I'm solo blocking Aaron Donald, but I have to give up a yard. Well, hey, great job. Like if I'm a guard and I'm supposed to be pulling and the only person in my way is a safety and I can only move him 1 yard, that wasn't a very good job. But you hear a little sprite say I moved backwards a yard, and over here a little sprite say I moved forward a yard, so I must have lost and I must have won. Well, that's not how football works, man. It's not complicated, but I think it largely defies large-scale attempts at quantification because of the concepts that we're talking about.
Yeah, I would agree. Alan, did you have anything else?
I don't think so. Do you have any more comments you want to get to?
I was going through as we were talking here. I was looking for. Oh, what was the one yesterday that I mentioned? That we didn't have time to bring up. Oh, this would be interesting too. I don't want to divert. I feel like we have so much conversation about Canada, but somebody brought up how their differences in blocking schemes against, when it's a run play and when it's a pass play, and that could maybe go into the predictability of the offense as a whole. So what would you say to that? Is that something that you've picked up on as well? So this person actually, Derek, this is Thomas Brocious, who has already won one of our Ball Knower of the Week awards. So shout out to him. But Derek mentioned this, which he thought was an interesting point.
Yeah, I mean it's. I'm not sure you're talking about like just in terms of like how they block or, but yeah, I think they're very predictable run pass. It's definitely a big problem.
Blocking schemes. Yeah, he's basically just saying that the blocking scheme is different in the run and the pass, so it's easy for the defense to pick up what they're doing right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. Keep the comments coming. We will crown another Ball Knower of the Week.
Imagine if somebody is, and I can't even imagine that there's a world where the same person is able to pull off both. But imagine there's a world where somebody gets a Ball Knower of the Week award and also has the best Steelers afternoon drive.
We would just have to have that person on the show all the time. I think at that point they would just get hired. I think that'd be sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that person is out there. So send us your vehicles, send us your comments / questions in the YouTube comments of this episode so we can get to some of them on the next one, which we'll be back for tomorrow. But Alan, until then, tell the people where they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X. PGH Steelers Now is the Steelers account there. SteelersNow.com is the website. Subscribe to our SN Plus. You get all Derek Bell stuff, my stuff, Nick Faribault stuff, the best of the best. That's the plus stuff. That's what you really want. If you're hardcore into football and Steelers football, 10% off the promo code Allen10. Check that out. I'm going to give one of those away here. Also, I've ordered the jersey. Should I tell you who it is or should it be a surprise?
I would say let it be a surprise. I'm going to say make it a surprise just to kind of go with the theme that we kind of have had here with we're going to be teasing that Carter could potentially be coming on at any moment.
Oh, yeah. Carter could be here tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe he will be.
We're just going to that's kind of the theme that we've been rolling with. So I don't think the people should know what the jersey is. All right.
We will be giving away a Steelers jersey. I may not tell you who it is. It's not Christian Kuntz. Maybe that's what we'll do. Just every day we can just cross one off the list, right? It is not Christian Kuntz. Okay. Tomorrow I'll tell you also who it is not. And keep the photos coming of the vehicles. We love them. We want to talk about them. I think that's it.
Yeah. Ravens game, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to go on the water and see if I can find some type of Steelers afternoon water drive.
Submarine.
We're going to look for a boat. Yeah. That's what I want is a submarine. That would be awesome.
Steelers afternoon helicopter, whatever you got.
Whatever it is. I am Zachary Smith, PGH.
We're desperate. I'll take a 10-speed at this point. Give me a Steelers afternoon Huffy, okay?
Antonio Brown, when he used to come into camp in a helicopter, if that was a Steelers afternoon helicopter, that would have been what we're looking for.
Juju's bike.
Yeah,
we could have rated Juju's bike. Maybe we'll do one in the Steelers parking lot one day. There are some rides there. None of them have Steelers logos on them, but there are some rides.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'm Zachary Smith, PGH. As Alan said, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening somewhere that isn't YouTube. But until tomorrow, for Alan Saunders, I'm Zachary Smith. Thanks for jumping in, taking another ride with us on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.